Hi, I'm Scott,
And I'm James.
and this is a podcast.
Toys from a galaxy far, far away.
I was talking to a guy the other day on YouTube. I subscribe to a YouTuber called Toy Galaxy. They're awesome. You should go subscribe to them. They were talking, and also Retro Blasting. They're awesome. And I was bouncing back and forth talking about some of these vintage toys. And some guys seem to prefer vintage over anything. And James seems to feel like I do, that we want the figures to be a certain way, certain quality, I guess.
I feel, well, I won't interrupt you or anything, but
No, you're fine.
I feel when I want to buy an action figure, especially Star Wars stuff, I want it to be not as film accurate as possible, but enough that I feel like when I'm sitting there playing them with my son, I feel like I'm in the Star Wars universe. Like you and I were just talking, was it last night or the night before? The night before, about that Obi-Wan I wanted.
Yeah.
And because if there's a really good, like old man Obi-Wan has a real distinct look. Alec Guinness has got the rough beard. He's an old with the sorcerer's hood, and it's really for me. I've been, they had figures that they came out with, but they're not that good looking. And then in 2009 they made a really good looking figure. Now I'm like selling Scott. I was like, oh, I'm on the eBay hunt again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was the whole point. What I was talking to these guys was, even though it might sound bad or sacrilegious, just because it's vintage doesn't mean we like it. I guess what we're basically trying to say is, I want a good likeness and good articulation. That's what I want. And it would be nice if they were all on the same scale.
Yeah.
Because I grew up reading comic books, and I didn't have a lot of action figures until Star Wars. Before that, they had Mego made some. They were the larger scale Star Trek figures, and then G.I. Joe made these large figures that were like 12-inch, I think. They were kind of too big. They took up a lot of room and stuff. But when Star Wars came out, and Kenner made the 3 3/4 size, that's part of their success, was that size. But even then, Luke didn't really look like Luke. Han didn't look like Han. He had two different heads, and why couldn't your elbows bend and your knees bend? For me, I wanted a little bit more. And around the same time, something came out called Micronauts, and they had articulation like ridiculously crazy, and I loved it. You could go in any position. It did soon after Star Wars. Everybody else got on the bandwagon. There's Black Hole, Buck Rogers. They made some good articulated figures, but Star Wars, they stuck to the 5-point of articulation. And I just wish they would have done that. So, you fast forward to now, and we have a large assortment and a large history, used ones we can buy, and we now can just buy what we want.
Thank God for eBay. I mean,
Yeah.
not in the bad. Well, I don't want to say eBay's wrecked the local markets, but I mean, for me, if you want to look for something, you're not going to want to go to Toys R Us, and then Target, and then Walmart, and then anywhere else.
Yeah.
eBay you can search one
just
click
online
thing.
in general.
Yeah.
You
I
can
mean,
buy brand new ones.
I do 80 to 90% of my shopping on eBay. People go, oh, what about Amazon? The problem is, I feel more personal buying something from somebody, like Scott, for example.
Yeah.
Where Amazon's a company. They buy stuff from...
I love Amazon for what it is, but for eBay, is where you can get the real vintage stuff. Stuff's put on there all the time. Amazon, the prices tend to be higher.
Yeah, I can't pay an extra 20% markup because Amazon wants to get their own pull out of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do. There's no way that somebody's charging $45 for a Star Wars figure that's just from them. I'm sure Amazon has their own cut on it.
Yeah.
Nothing against Amazon.
So, and then what we've got now is almost too much to choose from, in my opinion. I wish they would stick to one scale, because you've got, well, just with Star Wars, you went from the vintage figures to Power the Force, then to Power the Force 2, and then they started just all kinds of stuff.
Ramping it up.
And my personal favorite is the Legacy Collection, and they made all kinds of obscure ones too, which I love that. And now we've got the Black Series, and you've got, we were at Walmart, made a video at Walmart here a week ago. What do they have? They have the Black Series, which in 3 3/4, then they have the Black Series 6-inch, then they have the Vintage Collection, which looks like it's got a good articulation, then they have the other...
they have like the, I call it plain printed, which has got either the Last Jedi thing on the back, or it's got Solo, which I always...
But it's just 5 POA.
But it's just 5 POA.
Yeah. So,
which are...
Why? You know, I mean, I can understand them having 5 POA, like at the dollar store and stuff, and then you have the Black Series, but now they've got so many, and I guess there's guys that'll buy all of them just to have their collection complete. But if I find me a good figure, I'm done. You know, and I wish that's what they would do. Is just they keep making the figures over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, like for the longest time, because for a while there, back when I lived in Seattle, I would buy lots from people, and I'm like, I don't need 6 Darth Vaders. I don't need 8 R2-D2s.
Yeah,
I don't need...
and I think I still got 6 Darth Vaders. But...
And I mean, I've slowly gone down and figured out, you know, you're almost as bad as me. I had to make a list of what I wanted, because it's so hard for me now to say, hey, I want this, but I want it to look that way, or I want it to look, you know, I don't want a Qui-Gon Jinn that looks like beep boop.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's a good point, because I don't know. It's almost like the movies. You make what we want, and we'll buy it, and make it affordable. I know the 5 POA is supposed to be more affordable, but I still have not found a reason why they're priced so high, because plastic's been out of oil, and the price of oil has been down for several years. So, but the price of toys didn't come back down. So, but what they did is they made different. Maybe they took. I don't know what they did. They made all these other different lines, you know. So what I did is I sold most of my vintage Star Wars figures, just because there's better ones that I like better. I know that might be blasphemy, but
Oh, great! I can't wait to hear all the rage mail I get.
Well, I like it. I want good likeness, and I want good articulation. It doesn't have to be super articulated, though that would be nice, but good articulation. Something beyond 5 POA. I'd prefer 9 at least. You know, at least G.I. Joe. And I like to. I've got an example here. So we've got, here is a vintage Stormtrooper. That is a vintage Star Wars Stormtrooper, 1977 or 8. And then here's the Han Solo from the Legacy Falcon. And
probably the best looking figure I've seen in probably a good 5 years. I mean, as far as how good it looks.
His elbows have just got a diagonal cut, yeah, but it works. And it, you know, the knees bend. You know, they've got a swivel there, and this is 5 POA. I was happy with this when I was a kid. I loved it. I still have it, of course. But there's other figures. There's Stormtrooper figures now that
surpass that.
I'm sorry, that are better looking and have more. That look better and have better articulation. And I like to show something else. The vintage Stormtrooper and the Micronaut that came out at the same time.
Excuse me.
Same scale, but you know, look at this articulation. And you know, they've been down.
I'm sure maybe it costs a little bit extra just to put in a couple of screws, but
And what there is a rubber washer in there, and if it ever breaks, you have to take the screw out and replace the rubber. You get it at a plumbing store, and they got the highly detailed hands. I mean, this came out at the same time.
So where did Kenner go wrong?
Well, Kenner is a little company, and it got the contract. You know, most people have seen that documentary.
If you haven't, go watch it. I think it's on Netflix still.
Yeah. The toys we were made of.
The toys that made us.
The toys that made us. And then there's some more documentaries. But I love this. And one more example, if you don't mind. This is Buck Rogers. This is Wilma Deering from Buck Rogers. This is the same way. You know, look at that articulation. The face doesn't have any detail on it, but you can paint that on there. But that's what came out at about the same time. So we've got these three that came out at the same time, and now we've got better Star Wars figures. And what else we got? Oh, we got another one that came out just a little bit later than these, and this is a Tron figure.
Bum bum bum. Tron.
And we got 5 TOA, just like the Stormtrooper. Now, this is a translucent plastic. This came out a few years before. You know, so I would have loved if they made the Tron figures like this. You know, if I could custom, but I hate to take a vintage Micronaut figure and customize it into a Tron figure, but you could very easily. They make Micronaut figures the same color as this, are close. So that's what you get, and that was my point. And then nowadays, you have this good likeness, and this is an older one. And then of course you've got something like this, which is Toy Biz Ghost Rider. I mean, it's got toe joints. I mean, look at that. You know, the double knee joint. It's even got shoulder blade, you know, that come out. I mean, amazing figures. And it seems like the figures now, some of them have backslid into something that's, you know, not desirable.
Well, let me see that on that Ghost Rider real quick. I just got to prove a quick point. For me, I mean, I don't know if you really are more into this, but I have a boy, my son. Him and I play action figures. For me, holding this is hard. You know, how are you going to set up the battle with 100 figures in your hand that are this big compared to this? I mean, I can set up 100 stormtroopers in a hallway and not. It's the same with the old. Another good example of what we were talking about is army figures. The old army men, the green ones, they made them in, you know, about maybe that big, and then they made bigger ones that were that big. They never bought the bigger ones. It's mostly what the kid is going to play with.
Yeah. Well, I mean, according to that documentary, Kenner went with the 3 3/4 inch size just purely for cost, you know, but it caught on, and I mean, now that's my favorite scale. You know, Marvel Universe, it saves space. It's just that simple. And plus, you can make vehicles. I collect vehicles too. So you can make a decent sized vehicle for this to fit into, and it'll be the right size and scale for the most part. And that's another thing for the vehicles. I mean, I've got Ghost Rider's motorcycle. You know, it's this long. But if you were to have a vehicle for a 6-inch Marvel Legends figure like this, I mean, the vehicle would be huge. And so that's why my favorite scale is pretty well 3 3/4, but I don't know, some of these 6-inch figures are awesome, and that's what you're going to get anyway, so you don't have a choice. Some of them are only made 6 inches, like NECA. I mean, NECA probably makes my favorite figures as far as likeness.
You mean like an Alien?
Yeah. And here we go, another comparison. That's Space 1999 figure. It came with the Space 1999 Mattel Eagle 1, and check out the vests. The vests almost look like the ones from Star Wars.
Almost like a snowtrooper pack,
or I think when they were breathing, and some of the figures had backpacks like these. But anyway, of course, this figure is what it is. They came with the eagle. They could have done it. You like them?
I mean, to go with the ship, yeah. Because I mean, if you're just,
it's only got 1, 2,
5,
1, 2, 3, 4. It just has a swivel at the torso and the shoulders and the head turn.
The feet don't move?
No. Or do they?
Yeah. They move.
No, they look like they could, but they don't. And then they got the space helmet that goes on. But you know, these came out. I think these actually came out around the same time.
What's the most? Does they say the year?
Yeah, you'll have to look at it.
Here, I'll look for it, or it'll say inside the.
So James, we just looked, and this is 1976 figure. And what was this?
78.
78 figure.
Or 77 or 78.
Yeah, because I got the early bird special, so the movie came out in 77, but they didn't have the figures ready. They didn't think the movie would be that good. Well,
yeah, that's the biggest joke.
I probably did get this in 78.
That's the biggest joke with Star Wars is everybody thought Star Wars was the biggest hilarious joke ever. It was basically a runoff of, I don't even want to say Star Trek, but it was.
Yeah.
They thought it was just a joke basically when the first Star Wars came out.
Yeah.
You know, nobody took it serious.
Well, you were telling me that Mark Hamill was letting everybody read the script,
yeah,
and all
he
his
said
friends and stuff, because it was no big deal. But then when the Empire came up, everything was secret.
And you know, he said that there was a lot of scrutiny. And he said, hey, Irvin Kershner, the guy.
Yeah.
He said, listen, I'm going to tell you this, and I know it, and George knows it. But if it leaks out, we're going to know it was you. And it was about the Darth Vader scene. And And he goes, yeah, hand comes off, chopped. And, you know, Mark Hamill, if you're watching this, I'm a big fan.
I heard everybody else in the crew and stuff just gasp.
And he, as Harrison Ford would say, hey, kid, you didn't fucking tell me that.
He won't watch this, but it's a small possibility because he married a girl from my hometown, and I've talked to him a couple times on Twitter. Let's
to bring it back about our back to the vintage stuff. I mean, so I was born in '94, and so my parents, I'm trying to think what was really the first action figure. My dad had all the vintage figures except for Boba Fett, maybe, and I just never grew up. It never was.
Oh, well, that's why you don't have an emotional attachment.
I don't have an emotional attachment to it. And then,
vintage.
you know, like the 1999, everyone hated Episode 1, but that was the movie I saw. I might have seen it first before I saw it.
I liked it.
Well, I mean, everyone was all on hating the Jar Jar Binks.
Well, I didn't like
For a long
Jar Jar.
time, I hated Jar Jar Binks too, but the fact is this, like we talked about earlier, you can't hate the actor, you can't hate who's doing it. It's just It's already written in the script. You can't say, "Oh, I'm
really." The only person you can blame for that is George Lucas for Jar Jar,
which isn't his fault because it was his daughters were young, they were kids, and it was kind of it became a kids movie.
Oh, okay.
I mean, his daughter was in the first movie.
Yeah.
It was in
I think all of his kids have been cameos in it. Yeah. Well, he didn't have an emotional attachment to him, and I did. I still have a few vintage Star Wars figures with the 5 POA, but I got rid of had almost the whole collection of the vintage, and I sold them all because I like the new ones better. I've got an emotional attachment to the first few I have, and let me go a little bit further as far as the vintage vehicles. The vintage AT-AT Walker is awesome. Because you pull the trigger in it, and I showed you. Yeah. And then I've got the Death Star playset, awesome. But as far as vintage, I got a vintage B-wing, but they didn't really change that either. So, but as far as I had a vintage TIE fighter and a vintage X-wing, I like the legacy ones better. I mean, they're more proportioned correctly. They're hanging from my ceiling now, and I love them. They're beautiful. I'm sorry. I mean, I had an emotional attachment to the X-wing and the TIE fighter,
Well, I think
and that was harder for me to sell than the figures.
I think they got the size wrong because I mean, and I think the vintage X-wing was smaller than a TIE fighter, which I mean they're almost identical size, but in reality, if you look at the actual dimensions, an X-wing's a lot bigger than a TIE fighter is. I mean, not by much, but
I didn't know that, but
I mean, lengthwise, it's longer.
I'm
but
more. It's just what you want, and as I said in this other video that spurred this conversation, a wise man told me just buy what you want. You know, I could have kept that X-wing and TIE fighter. It wasn't costing me anything to keep them, but I saw something better, and I did keep them. Actually, I did keep them for a while, and hung them side by side. You know, and I'm thinking, my emotional attachment wasn't that strong to this other one that looks so much better. You know, so I've got Wedges and I've got Lukes. I got 2 Lukes. I mean, they're so awesome. I got multiples. That's crazy. I don't have I don't get multiples, and you know, I had to have them. And I've got 2 of the Legacy TIE fighters. My God, they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
But now the vintage TIE Interceptor, it was big.
There's a big ship.
Yeah, it had the big wings that were proportioned right, but it had the electronics. The cockpit was small. I wanted to. I care more about it looking
Film
more
accurate,
accurate.
as I say.
Yeah, I don't count rivets, but I wanted to look close as you can, and it doesn't have to have electronics.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't, and I know they're starting to do that with the Force Link thing. For me, all you gotta do is install a little button that you can press and it goes beep, 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 which, I mean, it's kind of argument against your point, but I mean, like the Legacy Falcon, that thing's got like 32 different sounds it makes, and I love it. It's probably my new favorite.
But
toy.
it looks great.
But it looks great.
I know it's a little bit smaller than it should be. I mean, the cockpit is
You're
actually
trying to put that thing in your car.
the cockpit pit is right, but the rest of the ship is a little bit smaller than it should be. But it's close enough for me. It's a magnificent.
Because I know in the other, well, you have one of the other versions of it, and it's too small for me. Like the 2004,
Oh,
the
yeah.
one that lights up. When you're trying to sit
Yeah,
here and
that's a
put
great
little
example.
figures,
Yeah.
and you're like, I mean, I play with all my I mean, people.
Well,
I'm sure I'm
and
gonna
it
get,
works.
I'm gonna get hate mail now because I just said I play with all my action figures and don't leave them in the box.
Yeah, he's got a tub.
I
I mean,
keep
I
my
wish we
tub.
could show you to you. He's got a tub
Bigger
full of
than that
action
tub.
figures.
Looks like that tub.
But yeah, so there's no telling how many action figures he's got in there. They're cool. I mean, I'm always looking at it when I go over to his house. I go, oh man, a tub of Star Wars figures. I mean, it's this deep. But the Millennium Falcon is a great example. I had the vintage one, and then I got the Power of the Force 2, and it had sounds. Then I got the next one, which was
the trilogy collection
and then it had lights
on the back,
then-
which I wish the other one had instead of
Then we
stickers.
got the Legacy one. Of course, I heard that the mold broke for the vintage one and those smaller ones, so they was toast anyway. So they made the Legacy one. I wonder if they'll ever release it.
That'd be cool to see. There's somebody out there who's been making these size comparisons, and they took the Lando's one and they put it next to the Legacy one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's completely.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, for me, if you're gonna say if you could pick one or the other, what would you rather have? And I'm.
That's what I'd like to see them do with the HasLab is the Legacy Falcon. Re-release it in HasLab.
But, you know any idea how heavy that damn thing is? I had to put it in my car, and now I'm driving back to Seattle, and it's taking up the whole side of the window. So people are gonna be driving by
worth
with
it.
the Millennium Falcon sticking out the side of my window.
Actually, if they want to re-release that through HasLab, or just make one that's got that matches the cockpit.
About
Make a
accurate.
big Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing the sail barge. Make a big Millennium Falcon.
But
I'll
make it
buy
with
that.
a cockpit enough. Like what I love about the Legacy is this. What I hated about the original ones was this. You could only fit 2 figures in the originals.
Yeah.
You can fit Chewie and Han, and even Chewie doesn't barely fit. But with that one, you can at least.
Yeah, we can get the 4 figures and the 4 seats, and but I wish they'd really do a good Millennium Falcon.
Like where the car, where like you
next
can
step up
actually
from the
go
Legacy
into
Falcon.
the cockpit via. That's what I'd like to see.
Oh, yeah,
you know
with
what
a
I'm
hole
saying?
through there,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, you
Just
don't have
do
to
it
make
right.
you don't have to make it fancy or
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be perfect. But
Now I heard that at HasLab they're going to make smaller, affordable stuff too. But If they made a big Falcon in right scale with a 3 3/4, man, I'm all on board.
People will buy it.
I'd do something to get the money. That'd be freaking awesome. It'd be huge.
It's just like,
though.
you know,
I mean, it'd take up a whole kitchen table. But so
care.
is the sail barge is going to.
Yeah.
I'd do it.
It's just like a turbo tank. People don't. I can't find a turbo tank anywhere. I mean, I've been you and I've been shopping for 6 months.
I wish they would release that. The AT-AT. I mean, those are awesome. Re-release them through HasLab. If you're not going to put them in Walmart.
Yeah, and I know they're remaking the Clone Wars, so this would be your best opportunity to market that. You get look next year. You got the Clone Wars series is coming back. Well, all those ships and all those vehicles were in the Clone Wars show, so why not sell them at the same time?
I latched onto a Legacy Falcon when I saw it at Walmart. Same thing with the AT-ST. Same thing with the AT-AT. Then they released that clone.
ATTE.
No, the clone trooper or the droid trooper transport.
MTT.
Yeah, but
Multi-troop transport, whatever it's called.
he didn't. He wasn't around in a position to get that stuff. Re-released that through Hasbro. But anyway, we're getting off track.
Yeah.
Make us figures in the same scale with good articulation and good likeness.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all we should have said in the video.
Yeah. No, and I mean that's all we can. That's all we as fans want. That's all we wished for is just. I get it. You know, you can't make everybody happy, but a lot of the fans are really crying out for. And I think Hasbro. Here's what you guys can do: release a little news clip, and just say, hey. If this is what, just write in what you can ship it and mail it in to Hasbro and say this is what you want. And put it in the box with the figure, just a little piece of paper, and say, hey, what would you like to see when we make new stuff?
Well,
get the customers. You don't know customer review until you read the customer review.
That's a good point because you.
I mean,
I've tried to contact some of these toy companies for one reason or another over the years, if a part or something, you know. Customer service is usually crappy. And, but a lot of people were going against HasLab, thought it was a horrible idea because it's like Matty Collector and stuff. But it could be a good thing if they do it right. And yeah, I mean, you could have the fans vote. Of course, with the sail barge, they put down deposits. And I didn't want the sail barge. I don't care about it. But if they did a big Millennium Falcon,
you and I have already talked about the sail barge as far as. I look at the sail barges. Who's gonna buy it? Second retail or second owner kind of deal. I mean, are you gonna ship it to me halfway across the country?
I don't know. I shipped a USS Flag here in August, and it's possible if you want to do it. But I've had shipping experience. But somebody's going to sell those sail barges. In fact, there's probably several people who bought 2 of them, and they're going to sell one of them at a high price to pay for the one they got. So they basically, you know, have their sail barge for free. Yeah. You know, but and then there's some people who are just going to, hey, I don't like it, or let's just stop collecting, or get a divorce or something, you know, and they'll sell it. But who knows what the price is going to be? But I've heard that they say that that was one that's been asked for years. I never really wanted it.
I never.
You know, if somebody wants it, that's fine.
I always just thought the skips were cool. But not. It's just I look at it and I'm like, it hurts my head to wrap my. I guess it hurts my head to wrap around it and say, I want a giant floating poop. That's what it looks like to me with little sails on it.
Well,
I mean,
I thought it was kind of cool when I saw it, but I mean, it's a desert skiff. I mean, there's only so much. I mean, it's not like some of these other vehicles that can go from planet to planet.
It was only in the movie for 30 minutes, so yeah. I mean, you can only use that much out of it.
I'd like to see them, you know, do something else. I like a good Death Star playset.
I got it. The best thing they should make: a big space slug that chases the Millennium Falcon. You could use a big puppet.
Well, I can make that. You know, use a sock.
A sock.
No. Okay then. Well, I guess this is probably going on 30 minutes, so
wrap it up.
Yeah. Well, that's our our views on action figures, what we want out of them, and maybe somebody's listening. I'm sure a lot of people out there agree with us.
If you don't, if you don't agree, I always appreciate people's.
Yeah.
You know, there's always room to have a civil conversation. Nobody has to say, "Hey, I like the way you're saying something," or we're extremely cordial about. Me and Scott, we differentiate on stuff. You and I, not argue, but we always have something.
Yeah,
it's better to have two people that disagree on something than two people that disagree on everything.
Our friendship goes to show you, he liked The Last Jedi, I didn't, but we still are good friends. And, this is what they made, which was okay, but this was what was possible at the time, and
that's what we have.
This is what we want. This is what we want. This is what we want, Good likenesses, good articulation. That's what we want. Disney toy boxes come out with some chunky looking figures.
Blocky still.
Guys are doing reviews. I just not interested. Not interested. If they're for kids, and that's fine. And maybe that's what they should do. Make some for kids. Make some for us. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next video.
Bye-bye.